Hello, and welcome to The Actor and the Engineer. My name is Paul James. I am the actor.
My name is Josh Knapp. I'm the broadcast engineer. Just following your lead. So,
I gotta do something. It's like same thing over and over.
Well,
I gotta
then
make
we
different
don't have to say the
choices.
same thing over. I mean, you could say whatever you want. It makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside that we say the same thing at the beginning and the end of every podcast. It's like this. It's like this thing. It's like when you go to school, there's like a first day of school thing, and then you like at the end of school you like throw all your papers, and which they probably don't do that anymore, and I don't even think I really ever did that. But just the concept of having traditions is kind of cool. But no, we don't have to have any traditions. We can just, we can just do whatever we want. It's fine.
I need for you to go back and listen to it again because you said you can do whatever you want. We can change it up. I feel more comfortable if we keep it exactly the same. So,
well, we are changing it up today, but we're changing it up with the subject.
Well, what we can do also is say the same thing in a different way.
That's true. My name is Josh Knapp, and I'm not an actor.
No, not like that. I mean, like, my name is Josh Knapp. I'm an Emmy Award-winning broadcast engineer. Here we go on the next podcast of The Actor and the Engineer. You'll never do that, but,
Yeah, I'll let you do that. Well, so today we're not going to talk about a specific movie, but we are going to talk about what we're tentatively calling disappearing actors or actors who disappear into their roles. And it seems like we've been leading up to this for a while, especially since a few of the actors we're going to talk about have just kind of like stuck around in our conversations. And even in movies that they don't star in, we still find ways to bring them up. So I'm interested to see your list. And so we're kind of talking about, I guess initially, the one that kind of kicked this off was most recently Riley Keough. We seem to see her in a bunch of different movies, and she kind of, it's not even that she plays a different role in every movie, which she does, but it's her demeanor, her affectations, her portrayal of that character doesn't have any kind of like a through line that I can really see from character to character. And I'll try to, at least from my side, I'll try to give a few examples of the opposite of what I see, at least in Riley Keough's performances. I think there are actors who are out there who are great actors, but when you see them in a role, you can't help but see a bit of what I think is the real person behind that. And a few of them that I have as examples are Christopher Walken, John Cusack, and Robert Downey Jr. That it's difficult to separate whatever they have put out there in the world of popular culture as them versus a lot of the characters that they play. Now, I haven't seen all of these each of these actors in every movie they've done, but it seems like the ones that I've run across them on, I see a lot of similarities between how their characters carry themselves and all that. And it's not a bad thing. I like all of those actors, but the actors we're talking about today, I think, are going to be like kind of the opposite of that.
Well, yes, Riley Keough is the principal actress that we keep saying we don't recognize her from trailer to trailer. And then I called you or I texted you. I said, I'm not sure if I'm getting this podcast right because when I was doing research, because I couldn't really think of many more people like that. And then I realized that, and we came to an agreement that if we didn't know who Daniel Day-Lewis was, if we didn't know who some of these people who are on these lists were, if we hadn't spent 30 years of cinema with them, we would not recognize them from movie to movie to movie. So they disappear in their characters, even though they're famous people. And I think that Robert Downey Jr. is a great example. He is different in Chaplin than he is in Tropical Thunder, but there's something quintessential Robert Downey Jr. about those things. Harrison Ford comes to mind immediately. Mm-hmm. Somebody nowadays, Adam Driver, comes to mind immediately. I'm not saying that any of these actors don't have the ability to completely disappear, but as of now, we've not seen anything where it's so transformative that we don't recognize who that person is. So that's was the catalyst for this podcast. And then I very quickly realized there's a ton of actors who are uber famous and they have tons of Oscars who completely disappear, and I cannot see them at all in their performance. I cannot see them I'm trying to think of the right vocabulary to pinpoint it, but literally, and we can just jump right into it. I think we just should. And I don't have anybody in a particular order. I have three separate things on my list: the actors who disappear, actors who can disappear, who don't really do it that often, and that happens to be Hollywood. That's not their choice, probably. And then one surprising person who kept coming up into my mind, and people will kind of scoff at it, but I stick by it. And once we get to it, you'll know what I'm talking about. So I'm just going to shoot it out with Daniel Day-Lewis. He completely disappears every single time. And sometimes his mannerisms are similar, but you would say they're related. They're not the same person. And you could just start naming them. You know, My Left Foot. Is that the same person who's in The Name of the Father? Is that the same person who's in Well, There Will Be Blood? And then you got Bob the Butcher, right? And you're thinking they're sort of similar, but they're not. And he's a great example to start with for me, because when I go to see something he's in, I know it's him because I know who Daniel Day-Lewis is. But I actually challenge myself to try to see him in it, and I can't. And the piece de resistance is Lincoln. I actually was convinced after Lincoln that he is not human, that Daniel Day-Lewis is not human. He is an alien or something. He's a creature not from this world. That opening shot of Lincoln is from his back, and you hear him talking, but you never really see him. And the first time I saw the movie, I hadn't really heard the voice, and I hadn't heard or seen much that he was doing. And when the camera slowly comes around to him, I was like, wait a second. What? That doesn't look like him. That doesn't sound like him. Just his whole way he's holding his back and his neck and his posture is nothing like anything I've seen. And immediately you go, he's going to win the Oscar again. And he did, deservedly so. But then if you take that guy and the Phantom Thread guy and you look at him, you can say, okay, I can see it's Daniel Day-Lewis in the eyes, sort of. And I could see that that's his physical body, sort of. But really, you have to, then you see him on a talk show or winning an award or in doing an interview, and you go, wait, I can't find him in there. So he is like the prime example. There's somebody else who's at the top of my list that we'll get to in just a little bit too, who's also the prime example, but he just really is the person who just disappears.
Yeah, he's a method actor too, right? How much of that do you think, I mean, I'm sure it works for some actors and not for other actors, but how much of that do you think is just for him, and how much of it do you think is maybe necessary, for lack of a better word, to give the performances that he gives? Like, he learned how to become a dressmaker for Phantom Thread, and he became a cobbler, for years and years and years, because he was interested in it. I don't know if that had anything to do with any movies he was in, but he does these deep dives into training on these things. And how much do you think that's necessary for him to disappear into those roles, or do you think that's just something that he needs as an actor to to be successful?
I guess the easy answer is yes and yes. I think and we've talked about this before, whatever it takes. I was taught to do research and to make a storyboard basically of your character, of the time frame. If it's 1974, you cut out the picture of what people were wearing in 1974, or what people in colleges look like, or what people, whatever you're doing in the movie or in the play, then you cut out pictures of your office and what won Best Picture that year and all that stuff. And I'm not saying that any of that stuff has ever helped me, but what it does for me is this. I'm not saying it didn't help me. What it does for me is, if it all falls apart and I just trash it and it just goes awry and it's no good and everybody thinks I suck and I know I suck, I can at least say it's not because I didn't do my research. I did my research. So that said, there's no way you could convince me it couldn't influence you. The way that people wore corduroy bell bottoms in 1974 are completely different than what they wore in the 1920s. So the way that you would walk is different. Your shoes are different. Your ties are different. Your hair is different. Things are different. So it would have an effect on it. I think that Daniel Day-Lewis is one of those people who is just interested in those kind of things. And he has the perfect excuse to go learn how to make a dress because now he's in a movie about that. And there's no way you can't convince me that the way a person might sew something with their hands would be different if you went and learned how to do it properly. So the way that you're holding the needle or the thread or the material will be different than if you just picked it up and tried to like pretend like you knew what you were doing. It's just a technical thing. You're a painter, you're a sculptor. Your hands act differently when you're doing different things. I had a acting teacher in college who said that the way that somebody puts their keys in a door is as different as a fingerprint of each human being. And I was like, what? And he said, go home and listen to your family members come into the house. And I got so good at it that I could tell who was coming in by the way that they were jiggling their keys. I could tell by the way, like you can hear somebody's car when it's coming around the corner. It's a specific sound that comes from that car. And if your aunt, like my aunt, used to have her left foot on the brake and her right foot on the gas, so it was like this zoom-da, zoom-da, zoom-da. Yeah, it was really funny, a little sickening, but funny when you're 10 years old. So when she was coming around the corner, when we went to visit her, you could hear zoom-da, zoom-da, zoom. You could hear her. You knew it was Aunt Marianne coming around the corner. So the same thing applies for physicalization. A preacher does not use his hands the same as somebody who is an architect. They don't use their hands the same way as somebody who plays guitar. It's just not the way it is. So the simple answer is yes, those things have to help him because that's what he does. And look at the results. You know what I mean? Like, but that said, you have somebody like Olivia Colman who has in interviews, because I've watched a ton of her because she's so funny, man. She's hilarious. She can't remember the character that she just played in a movie that she's promoting. She's like, it was 2 years ago. I don't remember. Oh yeah. And then she'll remember. It's hilarious. Watch her on Graham
Norton.
Yes, Norton. And she is famous for not doing any research at all. And she's talking about some kind of detective show she did with another actor. And she's like, oh yeah, so-and-so would know. He did the research. So if I had any questions, I'd just go ask him. But look at what she gets. Her performance in The Favorite is as astonishing as anything that Daniel Day-Lewis has done. It's as character driven as anything a lot of these people on the list have done. Actually, she should be on this list. So for me, it's whatever it takes. I personally, we've talked about this before. I personally believe that if you want to listen to 5 different Hamlets do To Be or Not to Be in order for you to understand the speech, do it. You know, some people would be like, that's cheating. You're stealing their inflection. No, you're making an understanding of what you don't understand from somebody else. I have no problem with that. So the long answer is what I just said, but the short answer is yes, it has to help. It has to help. Yes.
Well, I mean, I'll bring up an actress that I feel like kind of fits this example of someone who just falls into these different characters and you can't recognize them. Melissa Leo, and I know she's won an Oscar, and I know, but I just seeing her in each of the. I mean, I've seen her in a lot of movies, and most of the time when I see her in a movie, I don't realize it until after the movie is over. She was in the Big Short, where they were talking about she was working as a Moody's loan qualifier person, and I did not see her. I did not recognize her at all. And seeing her in a movie like Flight, where she plays a very small part, kind of close to the end. The Fighter is obviously the movie that she won for, and she's a lot more prominent. But I never did see Frozen River, and I know that was kind of like her big breakout film, as far as like a lot of people noticing her. But she played a role. She played one of the journalists in Snowden, which I just saw fairly recently. So she's been in a bunch of films, not necessarily as the star in each of those films, but it's either the way that it's either the makeup that they use on her or her vocal inflections. I don't see any kind of she doesn't impart anything to the role that's not there for the character. It's just what the character is doing and how the character should sound. The fighter being an example of something where she kind of like leans into an accent or a demeanor, and it's completely opposite from the professional government person she's playing in Flight, or somebody who's really closed off in The Big Short and just worried about protecting herself. So I mean, that's, to me, I'm amazed that someone can go through all those different transformations. And like I said, some of it has to do with the makeup and hair and those types of things, but at the same time, people can shine through that in their using their mannerisms, and it can be more of a one note performance, whereas she gives a more, I guess, a more nuanced performance in each of the roles that I've seen her in.
I love that. First of all, Sienna Miller is another actress on my list, and I think on your list that we're going to talk about who does that for me too. And it's frustrating in a way, because I'm like, wait, I can't see her, and American Sniper. I watched almost the whole entire movie, and I went, wait, isn't Sienna Miller is in this? And then I went, whoa. But back to Melissa Leo really quick. You know what? Melissa Leo has the quality of the actress that you remember the character, not her. Yeah. So I remember talking with somebody about 21 Grams and talking about Benicio del Toro being nominated and Naomi Watts being nominated, and how Sean Penn should have been nominated that year. But he won for Mystic River, so I guess he was happy. And somebody said, oh yeah, Melissa Leo was really good in that too. And I went, who is she in that? What? She's not in that movie. I know movies, and she's not in that movie. And they're like, she plays Benicio del Toro's Bible thumping wife who kind of changes her ways after everything that happens. And I was like, wait, no, that's not her. And I had to go back and it's not like a hardship to have to watch that movie again, because I love that movie. It's a hard movie to watch, but it's so well executed. One of my favorites of that year. And sure enough, here she is. And I was like, oh my gosh. And when she was nominated for The Fighter, I remember somebody saying, oh, this is great. She's probably going to win because it's her second Oscar nomination. She deserves. I said, second. She was nominated for Frozen River. And I was like, wait, no, that's that independent actress. And the person went, Melissa Leo. I was like, wait, no. And I went back and I looked and I said, I can't believe that. And I went back and I looked at the clip of the Best Actress nominations that year. You know how they show the clip at the Oscars. And I was like, that is not the same person who's the mother in The Fighter. It's just, it's not. I don't know what it is that she does, but all of these people on this list and your list, I believe, have this quality. And I don't think that it's acquirable. I think it's something that's intangible. I think you can do your due diligence to create your character, like I just rambled on about, but I just think you either have that or you don't. It's just one of those things.
Yeah, I think you brought up Sienna Miller, and that's another perfect example of someone. She's also on my list. And the first movie I ever saw her in was Layer Cake. She's kind of like the woman in Layer Cake who gets with Daniel Craig in that film, and she is like super sexualized. Oh, you're looking very confused, and she's definitely in that movie. That's the first time I saw her. She's all over like the back of the DVD, and I was like, okay, I will. I mean, she looked real nice. I mean, I hate to, I don't want to completely objectify her, but in that movie, she was being objectified. And then right after that, she did Factory Girl, which I never saw, but was another one of those where she plays Edie Sedgwick or something, the girl at the factory for Andy Warhol. I'm not really a big Andy Warhol person. I don't really know all the details behind that, but she plays someone who's also, super sexualized. She's in Alfie after that. So she's kind of going down a trajectory, it seems like.
Wait, stop, slow down, stop. Hold on a second. Are you talking about Layer Cakes is the one with Sally Hawkins, and Sally Hawkins plays kind of an a
No.
gun-toting? No.
No, Layer Cake. It's like a British gangster movie with Daniel Craig as the star.
And there's a rival gang or something, and there's a woman in that gang who just like
Yeah,
goes
like-
crazy with machine gun. That's Sally Hawkins. Yes, it is.
What?
Yes, I'm looking at the cast list right now.
Really?
I guess
There's like Michael
Sally Hawkins should be
Gambon
on
and-
this. Yep, that's it. I remember this movie. I
Okay,
remember
yeah.
the
Well, I don't think of Sally Hawkins when I think of that movie. I think of Daniel Craig and Sienna Miller, but
it's also the fact that maybe Sally Hawkins deserves to be on this list because she is that machine toting woman. She goes crazy in that one scene.
Her name is Slasher.
Yeah, and she did the movie on purpose because she knew that nobody would have ever cast her in this role. So when they offered it to her and she fought for it, she was like, I'm taking it. So anyway, I'm blown away that I can't even, I remember Sienna Miller's character,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm trying to see her. Anyway,
mean,
I interrupted you because my
That's
mind
crazy.
is blown by that.
Yeah. So, but I think once she got to G.I. Joe, that was kind of like, I wonder what would have happened if G.I. Joe just blew up and got super successful, if her whole career would have been different. But, you know, the movie, since it was not successful, the movies that she did after that were a lot of the movies that, you know, that I kind of have internalized remembering her in. I saw The Interview, Steve Buscemi's, I don't know if it's a directorial debut by him, but he directed and starred in an Interview with her. It was pretty much like him and her. She was an American Sniper, we've talked about before. Foxcatcher, High Rise. I mean, she's picking some like kind of like niche films. You're looking confused about High Rise.
Wait a second. Is she? No, I as soon as you said High Rise, I remember her in that. But what is she? Who is she in?
She's Mark Ruffalo's wife in Foxcatcher.
Son of a bitch. Wow.
Yeah.
Good for her,
Yeah.
though, because there's something, she's so stunningly beautiful. And
Yes, yeah.
let me just go back for just a split second. I don't think that because you want to compliment somebody and that you're attracted to somebody and that you find somebody attractive is objectifying somebody, first of all. You just want to say she's
attractive.
a very attractive
Yes.
woman, and she's very attractive.
Yeah.
I get kind of a get out of jail card with that one, though. But anyway, so back to what you were saying, I just am blown away that that's her in Foxcatcher, and she's in like 2 scenes.
Yeah. But I mean, they're impactful scenes. I mean, like one of the big climaxes of the movie she's in. So it's a big deal. So, and there's a movie on this list that I have on my list that I've not seen, but every time I see it come by, like I'm like, I have to see this movie. And we talked about it in Captain Marvel. It's called Mississippi Grind, and it was directed by Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck, and it stars Ben Mendelsohn and Ryan Reynolds. I guess she's also in that. Also, the Sienna Miller is in that too. So, I mean, those actors. Alfre Woodard's in it. I mean, come on. So yeah,
It's a great cast
it
list.
is a great cast list. So I'm interested to. I need to seek out that movie. But anyway, so Sienna Miller is another one that, you know, we've we've talked about multiple times, and especially since we've started doing the podcast, she's made interesting choices on the movies that she stars in, and they're kind of like the polar opposite of playing the Baroness in G.I. Joe.
Well, she was also with she did another movie with Bradley Cooper called Burnt, and I saw that because of them, and I thought to myself when I'm watching her, she's the lead, she's the ingenue in the film, and she's the lead female character. But I spent the majority of the movie trying to figure out her tics or her tells, because she just is so, for lack of a better term, mainstream in that. I think she uses her natural accent, which I don't think I've heard a whole lot. And I can see her because of the poster or because of the pictures from the movie, but I can't see her from anything else. Like, to know that that's the same woman who's an American Sniper who's in Foxcatcher is bizarre to me. And unlike a lot of people on this list that I have, And you're right. I think that makeup and hair and costumes and all that other stuff, which I talked about briefly, have a lot to do with these type of things. Makeup has a big thing to do with it. Sienna Miller, Melissa Leo, Sally Hawkins, there's no makeup. There's no prosthetics. There's nothing changing their physical being. So they just have whatever it is, whatever it is that makes somebody disappear. Or Riley Keough, there's no big character choices when it comes to hair and makeup and prosthetics, and she just completely disappears. Yeah. All right, cool. I'm excited about this.
All right, what's next?
At first I was kind of like, I'm not sure about this podcast because I'm not sure I got enough to talk about. Well, I want to mention a couple people really quick, because I think that there are people who would say, well, they don't really disappear, and they don't traditionally, but they have. So they made my list. Val Kilmer.
Yeah.
And a lot of people would go, what? And I say, watch Tombstone, then watch The Doors, and then watch The Island of Dr. Moreau. It's not the same guy. And he does have ticks and tells as characters that he's made as choices, especially that voice he does in Tombstone. Have you seen Tombstone?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He's famous for it now. Back in the day, people kind of brushed him over. And a friend of mine said he deserved an Oscar nomination. I was like, for Tombstone? What? And I was kind of being a snob about it because who knows why. Let's say it's because I was younger. And I watched it and I just thought, man, that's not anything I've ever seen him do before. And, he's a traditional mainstream actor who's had a lot of big hits, and we know him as Val Kilmer, but I think he's underappreciated as a character actor. And maybe if he starts to, I know he's not doing very well. His health is up and down recently, but hopefully if he's feeling better in the future, then he's past the age of being the movie star anymore. So maybe we'll start to be able to appreciate him.
Well, he's in Top Gun too.
Yeah, I know. I'm wondering about that.
I don't know where
though.
He's going to be in that, but he's going to play Iceman.
Yeah, and he's definitely aged, and he's definitely a middle-aged guy now. So I'm wondering if they're going to just completely ignore that, or it's going to be a choice that they make for a certain reason. I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. And hopefully he's doing well with his health, so we can see more of these character studies that he's able to do. Another person that most people would say, who? What? James Franco. If you think about The Disaster Artist, and then I've never seen Spring Breakers. I've only seen trailers, but I still can't see. Yeah, I can't see him in that movie. I just can't. Yeah. And then you watch anything else that he does, from Milk to what's the movie where he lost his arm that he was nominated for?
Oh yeah, 127 Hours.
Yes, his solid believability is there, but if you put that up against the Coen Brothers film that he just did, and The Disaster Artist and Spring Breakers, you can't see this guy, especially The Disaster Artist. I mean, it's crazy. And that was hard to do because he was actually playing a real human being who has all of those crazy ticks and tells, and it could have been just a caricature, but it wasn't. It was a true hunkered down performance. So I give James Franco a lot of credit. And then another person, I don't mean to clump all these people together, but I think these are like the surprises that most people wouldn't necessarily think of immediately. Eddie Murphy. And I know that a lot of what Eddie Murphy does has to do with prosthetics and character choices that they make with wigs and costumes and stuff like that. But literally, I mean, just watch that family scene in The Nutty Professor. Even if it was Eddie Murphy, can you imagine that table read? It must have been crazy to watch him do that. And I honestly believe for the movie, you needed the prosthetics, and you needed for him to look like the woman, to look like the grandmother, to look like the brother. And it's the brother that makes me go, where is Eddie Murphy? I can't see him in that guy. But if you take all that prosthetics and all of that makeup away, I believe if you were to watch him just do all those characters, you still can't see him. You can't see him. Now, he's a huge movie star, so he's probably, I don't know if he's not offered these character roles, or he doesn't take them. I don't know. He's the type of person that when he's 75, 80, and finally wins his Oscar for completely disappearing in some role, people are going to be like, I'm so surprised you could do that. I'm not. You know, when you watch
Mm-hmm.
The Nutty Professor, you have to go, that man disappeared. He just does. Some of his inflections are similar. Some of his stuff that he does, it's, you know, it's Eddie Murphy, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. He washes all of that away.
I've never seen Being There, but do you think it might be a similar thing to maybe like Peter Sellers in Being There?
Is he on your list, by the way?
No, but that's kind of like right down the middle. Come on. It's Peter Sellers, you know. It's a good example of someone, but I haven't seen the Pink Panther movies, and I've only seen like Doctor Strangelove essentially and Lolita. Those are the two movies that I've seen with him in them. But no, I have not seen any of the Pink Panther movies, so I need to.
Yeah, they're great. I grew up on them. So, no, he
Oh, that's cool.
definitely disappears. And he has an Oscar nomination for Best Actor for playing three different characters in one movie. And he is not the same guy in all three of those characters. And
Hmm.
being there solidifies that for me. It's it's not normal what he does. It's just not normal. It's of another planet or of another universe or of another plane of existence. Because when you watch Being There, it's so subtle and it's so believable. You'll fight the urge to try to remember the characters from Doctor Strangelove and try to place them on top of Chauncey Gardner. That's his name in Being There, Chauncey Gardner. Um, and you can't do it. You just can't do it. And I think what he does in Being There is much harder than what he did in Doctor Strangelove. For me personally, I think that's
Hmm.
harder to actually be a believable character and consistent. And he has no major character arc when it comes to changing or evolving or going through a conflict and learning and having a resolution. It's not that kind of character. It's like the Rain Man character, where he's just consistent all the way through the movie. I think that's even harder to do than have a character arc, because you can explore different levels when you have a character arc. So yeah, Peter Sellers is definitely on these lists, but he's not. I didn't write him down, but
Hmm.
I did think about him. I did think
All
about
right.
him.
I'm gonna bring up he's mainly a character actor, and I think he isn't. I don't know if he started in any big, huge movies or anything, but Garrett Dillahunt. Do you know who that is?
No, I can't say that I do.
He was in Deadwood, and the first time I really noticed him was in No Country for Old Men. He was kind of like the deputy to Tommy
Oh
Lee Jones. And,
yeah,
and when
yes.
they go out on the horses and they find all this stuff, I say it all the time. Steph probably bugged at me saying it, but whenever there's like a fight or something, I'll say "whoa differences," because when they when they're going through like what happened at when they find the different bodies in the cars and stuff, what the was supposed to be there was drugs and it was supposed to be money there, but you know he kind of like says like looks like they came over here and then they did this and then whoa differences. So it's his delivery is great in all the movies that I've seen him in, but he's been in Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, an amazing scene where Brad Pitt goes to his house and he knows that, you know, that Jesse James knows, and it's a whole like, you're gonna kill me, aren't you? And you just feel it in your bones. And with a lesser actor, it just would have just fallen flat. He was in The Road. He's been in Winter's Bone. He had a like a cameo type thing in Killing Them Softly, which is Andrew Dominic, same guy who did Assassination of Jesse James. He was in Looper. He was kind of one of the cops essentially in Looper. He was in 12 Years a Slave, but he spent most of his time on TV, like with some consistent jobs. He was in Raising Hope, which is a sitcom, and then you know I saw him in an episode of Brooklyn Nine Nine, and then I think he's been in a couple. I think he's in Fear the Walking Dead right now, but yeah. So I mean, he's just a great actor. I think he was also on ER for a while too, a long time ago. So he's kind of been around journeyman type of you know, I guess in baseball you'd call him a utility player. You know, he can play all the positions, and you bring him in when you need somebody you know is gonna do. And so yeah, it's he. I think more people should know his name, but at the same time, I'm kind of like I like the roles that he has now. If he was like a huge star, I don't know if he would get these kind of like come in for one or two scenes and then knock it out of the park and then, fade off into the darkness. So the Garrett Dillahunt, he's great.
Yeah, that's a good choice because now I know his name. Like I know everything that you made reference to. He was in Widows, by the way.
Oh yeah, that's right. He was.
Yeah.
So we just saw
Yeah,
him.
you're right. He does. Yeah, he does disappear. He does do what he's paid to do. And I noticed it because he did stick out to me throughout the last 10 years. I mean, I recognize this guy. And you're right, No Country for Old Men, he's great. And then when I saw Raising Hope, for whatever reason, it came on at a certain time that I was watching TV, which is hardly ever. And I hardly ever start and watch a sitcom when it's new. I usually watch it afterwards, or I'll watch it on YouTube or something like that. I just, the ritual of watching TV is not something I'm into anymore. I used to be, but I'm not anymore. But anyway, I was watching him on Raising Hope and I was like, this guy's got it going on, because he is nothing like this in Winter's Bone. Because that's when I went, oh, that's the sheriff from Winter's Bone. He has 2 or 3 scenes and he has the quintessential line basically. And it's not even that important of a line. He basically lays down the stakes for Jennifer Lawrence's character. And then at the end, when she does what she does, he goes, how did you do that? And she said, remember, or she says something like bread and butter, meaning she is this family and that she has been bread and buttered to be this family and that she knew she was going to work this out. And it's not anything, I just ruined it, but I mean, it's a great scene. I didn't give it justice. I didn't do it well. But anyway, he has a very simple line and he is absolutely perplexed that she did what she did. How did, this all work out? And it wouldn't work. The key line that she has wouldn't work if he didn't pull off being simultaneously surprised and blown away and kind of reveres this woman after she's done what she's done. At the same time, he just can't believe that this has worked out. And he's never going to know what she did to have it worked out. It's just all in one line. So yeah, he's a great choice. I'm jealous you picked him up. So you can't have a list like this without having Meryl Streep on it. She is the quintessential American character actor. I was watching something the other day and a clip from The Iron Lady came up and I was like, wait, I still can't see her in that. I can't see Meryl Streep. Now, she is also the quintessential movie star who we've known for 4 decades and we know who she is. So it's even harder for her to kind of disappear. But if you remember her from The Post and then think about The Devil Wears Prada and then think about Iron Lady, it's just not the same person. It's just not. And then you throw in August Osage County. I don't think the woman from August Osage County could ever be in the same room as the woman from The Post. And I'm trying to, as we speak, see her eyes and understand that that's Meryl Streep and try to figure out something that is similar between those two characters. And there's nothing. So she is the epitome, the quintessential reason this podcast should even exist, because she continuously does things that seem natural. She's like Daniel Day-Lewis. She seems natural and believable, but makes these choices. And the way that she sits down in the Devil Wears Prada and the way that she sits down in August Osage County are completely two different things. They're just not even the same body. It just doesn't seem like any similarities. Now, granted, she's done a lot of movies where she's just, I wouldn't say just Meryl Streep, but because she's always making very interesting choices, even in, what's the movie she did with Rick Springfield about the guitar playing mom who,
I know what you're talking about. Ricky in the Flash.
Ricky, yes, thank you. I would have gotten it in about 2 seconds. She's making definite choices, but obviously there's no makeup, there's no prosthetics, there's no like shocking character choices per se. But it's still, to me, it's hard to see that that's the same person in the Postcards from the Edge. And that's a very stripped down, just Meryl Streep performance. But then you watch the French Lieutenant's Woman, and you think that woman sounds nothing like that woman from Silkwood. You name it. There's nothing similar. But when you watch just something like Postcards from the Edge, and then you watch Silkwood, you realize, oh, you're just thinking you're watching Meryl Streep play something normal, if you will. But if you watch them back to back, they're two completely different people. So, I mean, we could have a whole podcast about how she's had a career of disappearing, and she does. The choices she makes in adaptation are brilliant. Like, she was nominated for that movie and, kind of went unsung. And everybody said, oh, poor Meryl Streep, she's been nominated 17 times and nobody really noticed her, even though she got a nomination. But really, it's a great performance. I don't know. Have you seen Adaptation?
Yes, I love that movie.
Yeah. You remember when she's watching the ants and the way that she's like, now imagine the script. She's sitting out at a picnic on the ground and she's watching an ant. And the line is, they're so shiny. That's the line. Okay, that's what's written in the script. But when you watch that movie and the way she says it, there's so much joy in it. And there's so much surprise and so much, I want to be an ant when I come back for my next life. They're so shiny. Though I can't imitate her, but it's just endearing. And it just is really well done. So,
yeah,
like I said, we could do a whole podcast.
Well, Steph and I are watching the newest season of Big Little Lies right now, and she's on that. And I mean, most of her scenes are with Nicole Kidman, and just the tension that is created by two women in the same room together with opposing motivations, and it's just it's like a stew that's like boiling over. It is insane, and nothing's happening. Like, physically nothing's happening. It's like the equivalent of two guys just like duking it out, but it's subtle, and the way that her character interacts with all the other characters is she's so purposefully cordial but biting. It's crazy how her character like knows things to say and how to say them, but on the surface you can see that like you could look at that conversation and be like, nothing's wrong with this conversation, it's just two friends having a talk, but it's totally different. It's amazing what can happen between just with words and gestures. I don't know. Did you see Big Little Lies, the first season?
I've seen the first season, and I have seen a clip of Meryl Streep is with Nicole Kidman and her kids
at the
dinner table.
All
of a
table?
sudden, she just
Okay, yeah. I mean, that's like that's the flashy one, but it's not that scene that is like the quintessential Meryl Streep scene in this movie. It is, oh my gosh, it's hard to talk about it without like spoiling the first season or anything, but because what her character is. But there's a scene she has with Shailene Woodley on the at Monterey Bay Aquarium, and it is just, you feel so much for all of the other. You feel for her, but you feel for all the other characters. It's, you don't know who to root for in some of those cases, but she helps you because she's a pretty vile person most of the time. But every once in a while, her portrayal of that character allows for your empathy to bubble back up for her, which you're just like, no, don't think about this. She's not a good person. Do not feel sorry for her, but she makes it happen. So it's amazing.
I do want to mention a couple of really quick things. I know that we wanted to end with Riley Keough, and we should, but I do want to mention a couple of things because I find it interesting that some people think these actors are mainstream actors who don't disappear, but they have the ability to disappear. And real quick, Jared Leto, if you look at the Joker, even though people might not like what he did, up against the guy, or they call him Junior in Panic Room, up against Rayon from the Dallas Buyers Club, it's just not the same person. He can crazily disappear. And he does a lot of things that Johnny Depp does where it's a physical thing, but it's still not the same guy. Real quick, they can disappear, but they don't often do it. Hilary Swank, Eddie Redmayne, and Jake Gyllenhaal. And people go, wait, what? And I go, Nightcrawler, Danish Girl, and Boys Don't Cry. That's not those people in those movies. Eddie Redmayne dissolved and became the person that he was supposed to become, which is important. And Boys Don't Cry is a standout for me. One, it won her first Oscar, Hilary Swank, but it's a hard pressed thing to go into a movie knowing an actress, even though she's kind of unknown at the time, and knowing she's a female with transgendered issues and sexual identity is what she says in the movie. And at the end of the movie, you no longer are thinking about the female actress Hilary Swank. You are thinking about the male character that actress played. And that person is male for you and will always be male. That is a boy. And that is a quality most actors and actresses don't really have. And I know this is a weird way to end this, but I do have to give shout out to Donnie Wahlberg. And people will go, Donnie Wahlberg? Wait, what?
Sixth Sense.
That's exactly right. It is not an actor's responsibility that his career goes one way versus going another way, meaning he's on Blue Bloods. My father loves that show, loves him on it. And some people might say, well, that's just a Tom Selleck TV show. Well, he's a working actor, so I give him credit for, staying a working actor. And also he's a very uber famous brother who's an Oscar nominee and a movie star. But nothing Mark Wahlberg has done up to this point, and I love Mark Wahlberg, don't get me wrong, is as disappearing as what Donnie Wahlberg does in The Sixth Sense. I, to this day, have looked at clips from that opening sequence of that movie and cannot see him. I cannot. I know it's him, and people say it's him, but it's just not him. And there's a respect that I have for people who attempt something as severe as that and accomplish it. And he should be celebrated because no matter what he does from this point on, he did that. And nobody believes it's him. Even when you show it, you're like, that's not him. You can kind of see it's him, but the whole physicalization that he did, the voice, the whole thing, it's an amazing transformation. And the reason why he always comes up when I think about this kind of disappearing subject matter is that if it was one time in my life I could do that and completely disappear to the point where we're having a discussion about it in 2019, I would feel accomplished as an actor. So I think that people can't underestimate something like what he did in The Sixth Sense. So, okay, I feel much better. I got that out.
So you're saying Donnie Wahlberg in The Sixth Sense, he's got the right stuff.
Yes.
Okay. Right. Well, maybe it's a good way to finish up this conversation by talking about someone that we mentioned at the very beginning, Riley Keough, who we just can't get away from in a good way, I think. I still haven't seen American Honey, but I've got a plane flight coming up, so I may be able to knock that one out on the plane flight. So, but the other movies that she's been in that we've even talked about, Mad Max, The Discovery, It Comes at Night, Logan Lucky, Under the Silver Lake, Hold the Dark. I saw The House That Jack Built, and she was in Magic Mike. I don't remember her in Magic Mike, but was she? I don't know if she was the girlfriend. Like, was she his girlfriend in Magic Mike? I'm not really sure. But her first
That's the whole point
movie,
to this podcast. Because
exactly.
You're going through all those movies, and I'm going, wait, she's where? She's in that? Oh,
she's in The Discovery? Yeah, she is in The Discovery. Yeah.
That's where I went, what's the deal with her?
Yeah. That's
where I put it together.
Mm-hmm. And that was right around the time of American Honey, I guess, too. But her first movie was The Runaways with, which I haven't seen, but with Kristen Stewart and Dakota Fanning and Aaliyah Shawkat. She was one of the band members of the Runaways. So, yeah.
That's ridiculous. That's so ridiculous.
Started off pretty well. And then she's in a movie with, like, called We Don't Belong Here. Have you heard of that movie? It's got
Mm-mm.
Catherine Keener, Anton Yelchin, Caitlin Dever, and her are all in this movie together. So, I mean, I don't know. And I found another movie that she's in called Yellow with Sienna Miller. So it's like,
Nuh-uh.
you gotta watch that movie, right? So,
No, because I don't really. I kind of enjoy it, but I kind of don't enjoy it because
oh,
it's just. It kind of gives me a little bit of a pressure in my brain that I enjoy it, but at the same time,
mhm.
like I watched American Honey, and I was like, I was trying to pinpoint something that made me think of the girl from or the woman from the Discovery, and I couldn't do it. And what's the movie she did with Adam Driver
Logan
and
Lucky.
Channing Tatum?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, whatever. I mean, that's just
whatever.
it's crazy. That's why I think when people throw around the word they're talented, it's not it's not a word that you can use because that connotates that, you know, they structured this and they put it together, which is probably all true. And they had to form this character, but she has whatever that intangible thing is that it's unfair to call it talent because it is just who she is. And this is what she brings. And that's just crazy.
The other thing that I'm interested in is I saw I don't even know if I finished it, but Steven Soderbergh has a movie called The Girlfriend Experience that starred like a I think it was an actual porn star as an escort. But there's a show that was on Showtime or something called The Girlfriend Experience, and I think it went for a couple seasons. And I think that Riley Keough is the star of that show. So I mean, that would be interesting to see her as an actor be able to flesh out a character not just over a single movie, but over hours and hours of a story. That would be interesting to see. So I'm sure it's probably on Netflix, DVD or something, even if it's not streaming anywhere. But anyway, so I'm interested in seeking that out. All right, I'm gonna leave you with this last question. What would you say about adding Tilda Swinton to this list? Because I think that there's something about her as an actor that she is infinitely noticeable, but she plays multiple different characters. So I don't think she's someone who necessarily like disappears into a character as much as she makes characters iconic, I think. So I don't know.
I think
Yeah.
she's the opposite of what we're
I
talking
think so
about.
too.
You
Kind of.
know it's you know it's her, but all of a sudden it's not her. And Michael Clayton is of
Mm.
course the one I always refer back to. It's the one she won the Oscar for, deservedly so. But she dissolved in that movie, and then I saw the character. You know it's Tilda Swinton. You just do. But then she dissolves into it like the Dead Don't Die. You know it's her, and then you kind of get this like giddy feeling inside, like, okay, we're in for an interesting ride here. It's Tilda
Hmm.
Swinton, and then all of a sudden at the end of it, you're like, was that Tilda Swinton, or was that somebody who adopted her look for that movie? And Doctor Strange is a great example because it's her, and there was a lot of flack about that movie, but that's not her fault
Hmm.
or her being the choice. But then when you saw her in Endgame, you're like, oh, Tilda Swinton, but you're not. You're not thinking Tilda Swinton. You're thinking the Supreme One or whatever they call her, the
Hmm.
Sorcerer Supreme. You're thinking that person has shown up. So she is the opposite of this.
Well, you can check us out on the web at actorandengineer.com. You can go to facebook.com/actorandengineer. You can tweet us at actorengineer. I'll see you next time.